everything that is in the world is driven by three spirits. And prominent among these spirits is the spirit of lust. Inordinate desire. Desire that cannot be controlled. Look at what Paul says. I think it's 2 Corinthians chapter 8. You start reading at verse 12. I think it's 2 Corinthians 8 or 1 Corinthians. It should be one of those, but it's Corinthians. He says that if eating meat will cause my brother to sin, I think it's the Message or NIV. He says, I would rather die a vegetarian. So if I claim that I am on this side of the divide, representing the kingdom of Jesus, and I'm releasing content that is profane, content that encourages all kinds of emotions and desires in the heart of young people, who am I really fighting for? Whose side am I really on? You know, we don't want to have this conversation because hunger is a matter. You say, I have a gift. I need to use my gift to survive. Who told you your gift is for survival? Primarily, your gift is for service. If God ever gives you a gift, the reason he gave you a gift is to advance his kingdom. Primarily. Your financial status is secondary to his agenda. And like it or not, there are gifted people that will die poor. Like it or not. And your reward in heaven will not be how much your gift was able to produce for your survivor. Your reward in heaven will be how much your gift was able to advance God's agenda. So because we do not understand that a war of spirits is happening in Christian homes, all kinds of movies are allowed. All kinds of songs are allowed. My brother, Satan crept in when men slept. He has raised a group of people. They don't want to identify with gospel. You know why? If they identify with gospel, we will come after them and say, this thing does not align with our doctrine. They don't want to identify with secular because we will come after them. That if you are secular, you cannot be in our churches. So they stand in the middle, wearing the cloak of darkness in the name of trying to advance their gifting. So they are singing Satan's song. I nearly wept. One of those churches in Lekki brought one guy like that to the pulpit. All the songs this guy sings is to stir up erotic love desires in the hearts of young people. Obviously not a believer. Because they don't know what to be a Christian means. And they brought him. And he sang one of these Hillsong songs or one of these songs. And the church was on their feet claiming they were worshiping God. When you enter into the arena of worship, God is not only listening to the sounds, he's checking the vessel. God is concerned about who came as much as he's concerned about what the person is saying. He said he rejected Cain and his offering. The first rejection was the vessel. The first thing that displeased God was the vessel that arrived. Cain! No. You don't meet the standard. The offering was the second rejection. You can't whitewash these things. Things that are happening in the spirit is a war between cities. Spirit cities are at war. And the one where the Father is called Zion. The one where the world has control is called Babylon. You enter into Babylon, you see carnality, you see self, you see perversion, immorality. Give me Philippians chapter 2 and verse 12. Let me build this a little. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 12. Therefore, Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation. How? Fear and trembling. Because you see, there are spirits that have gone out into the world. And you see, Satan's number one agenda is to make sure that he doesn't go to hell alone. He wants to go with a company of men. This kind of fear is not fear that makes you run and be scared of God. This is the kind of awe and reverence that makes you realize that being on this side of the divide is a privilege. You tremble because you know that if you lose it, the price is too high. You lose it, the price is too high to pay. If you've been here long enough, I have admonished you many times. See, if God gives you the privilege of his face, don't gamble with that privilege. Many men are seeking it. They've not been granted access. Those who lost it till today, some of them have not been able to recover. You know a man called Jimmy Swaggart? When Jimmy Swaggart started ministry, he was the epitome of what an evangelist is. Men like Billy Graham looked up to men like Swaggart. Swaggart was the SI unit of ministry. Moved in power. Moved in the dimensions of the Holy Ghost. He was a radical preacher against sin. Radical. Immorality in his day, he was the voice that God used to stab it in the hearts of men. And then Satan decided to set him up. They packaged a young prostitute. And Jimmy Swaggart went into that lady. I'm not exaggerating. 500,000 left his church. It was a major disaster in America. People openly stood and said, if this man can sleep with a prostitute, I will never serve God again. Such was his influence. That's why when you see Jimmy Swaggart preaching now, tears fall from his eyes. Every day he weeps. He weeps for what he had and what he could have had. This thing is with fear and trembling. You tremble at his word. You never become familiar with his presence. You don't take his love for granted, because the one that comes to you as Father, as you begin to mature, he will now show you that he is Lord. You know what Lord means in the Hebrew? Master, owner. In your walk with him, he will now begin to teach you that he is your master. That your life is not your own. You are just a custodian. He gave it to you in trust. It's not your own. He's your master.
May the Lord give you understanding.